Hello everyone.
Hello.
I'm Tony.
And I'm Tally.
And we are the
Lazy Book Lovers.
This is a podcast for book lovers who procrastinate about reading and have never-ending to-be-read piles. Oh, hiccup then. Sorry, guys. So for what today's episode is about, Nat is going to sort of start the intro and then I'm going to tell you all about what we're talking about because I was too scared to do it.
So today we are working in collaboration with Tandem Collective and Octopus Books, and who kindly gifted us an e-copy of the book
Strong Female Character by Fern Brady.
Yeah. So it's going to be a focused episode just on this book today.
Just on one book, which we haven't done that often.
Not for a while. Fourth Wing was probably our last one.
Yeah. And we've done authors, but not particularly one particular book.
Yeah.
And this is a non-fiction, even more unusually for us.
Yes.
It is not fantasy smart. We actually read things and learned stuff.
Yeah, so this is a memoir.
Yes, so the genre for this book is technically memoir/biography. The paperback was released on the 11th of January. There is also an audiobook and an ebook available. There will be links for that in the description or in our card.
Yeah.
Also, as part of the collaboration, we have kindly been given 3 copies of the paperback version to give away. Visit our Instagram or our TikTok on the day this comes out, which is the 15th of February. You can find the links to those accounts in our card, which is usually in the description for the episode, wherever you listen. So visit on the day to find out what's going on with the giveaway and how you can get a copy of the book for yourself. It has won a bunch of awards. Non-fiction book 2023, Books on My Bag Awards shortlist, Neuro Book Awards shortlist, Bookshop.org Indie Champion shortlist, Amazon Non-Fiction Book of the Year shortlist, Goodreads Choice Book of the Year, and Audible Books of the Year 2023, the Times Book of the Year 2023, Apple Best Audiobooks of 2023, Bookshop.org Book of the Month January 2024. So
Wow, that's a lot.
Before we get into discussing it, I also wanted to make sure we go over the content warnings from this book. You will find links to the full list of content warnings that Tandem Collective have done on their website. The link will be in the description as well, or in the card.
Yeah, if any of these seem too much for you, maybe skip this episode and we'll see you next week.
This memoir sort of discusses understanding meltdowns before and after diagnosis with autism. Also has quite frank and maybe slightly flippant tone to some people, or quite not flippant, casual tone in discussion about things like self-harm and suicide, because this is written by a comedian, Fern Brady. So obviously this is done with a very Scottish comedian approach to the topic.
Yeah.
So if that is not how you'd like to approach this kind of topic as well, this book might not be for you. It worked for me as a British person who's very sarcastic herself. Those are you kind of things, it's discussions of like late diagnosed autism, self-harm, suicide. She does briefly work as a stripper, so if that's also not for you.
There's also discussions of domestic abuse, self-harm, eating disorders, mental illnesses in general, grooming.
She does spend a bit of time in a psych ward.
Yeah. So, yeah, just check your content warnings.
Yeah.
And with that,
okay,
we will jump into it.
So I've done prep this time, guys.
Amazing.
So the outline of what this book's about, like in just bullet points, it starts really with the lead up to Fern being diagnosed with autism and what that looked like before and after, and the lead up to it, all her feelings about it. And then it kind of jumps back in time to her early teens, kind of goes through to her 20s, into her 30s, but peppered throughout the stories of her adulthood are links back to parts of her childhood where there were signs that relate to the struggles she had in adulthood.
Yeah, like it's almost set up as like themes. So like one chapter will deal with kind of one theme, and it will do the points throughout her life that kind of connect. Yeah.
And it talks very heavily about the struggles of moving through a neurotypical world as an undiagnosed neurodivergent person. That's kind of bullet points.
Yes.
What it's about. Yeah, what was your initial thoughts, feelings? Any thoughts in the brain?
Not really. Not. Shall we read the description of the book?
Have you got it in front of you?
Yeah, and this will also kick me into gear.
Yeah.
So, Strong Female Character is a game-changing memoir on sexism and neurodiversity. Fern Brady will use her voice as a neurodivergent working-class woman from Scotland to bring issues such as sex work, abusive relationships, and her time spent in teenage mental health units to the page. It will take a sledgehammer to the manic pixie dream girl trope, which is mistakenly applied to neurodiverse women. It will also look at how her lack of regard for social expectations ultimately meant she surpassed any limitations of what a Scottish working class woman can do. So my overall feelings are, it's a very heavy book, and it's very no holds barred.
She is very honest.
Brutally honest.
Some
of the things I'm reading, I'm like, if I was that person from her, like, her best friend from year whatever, reading that, I would be like, oh, that's so awkward.
Also just her experience in general, like.
So a lot, it is, her life is just
so interesting as well.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, if you'd told me all these things happened to one person, I'd have been like, they're clearly lying. This is like a Reddit shitpost. Like, no way. And it's crazy.
She's been through the mill.
Yeah, and it's crazy that basically all of it can link back to, if she'd been diagnosed with this sooner, a lot of these situations she found herself in perhaps may not have happened.
Because she does discuss that she thought she was autistic as a teenager when she was in CAMS and in, like, teenage mental health institutions, and she was told, no, you can't have it because you can make eye contact and you have boyfriends.
Yeah. And
it's the fact that also there's a good 15 years of her life that could have been different at that point as well. Yeah. Had it been found at the point where she realised herself.
Yeah, and, like, she has a very interesting relationship with her parents because of it. And, you know, possibly if the diagnosis had come sooner, she would have had a better relationship with her parents. It was quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, fiery. She was kicked out a lot.
It's a lot of... Fern talks a lot about, with her autism, it's very black and white thinking. And a lot of the time she could not understand why her mum was so upset about things.
Yeah.
So, like, when she started having sex as a teenager, this, obviously, this is working class Scotland in the 80s. So that was quite kind of... Someone having, even if it was protected sex, freely, outside of wedlock, to her mum, who was a boomer parent, was like end of the world.
Yeah, and Catholic at that as well.
And Catholic, yeah. And for Fern, she couldn't understand because she was like, well, I'm not going to get pregnant and I'd done everything I'm supposed to do to protect myself or wore condoms, you know. I don't get why you're upset.
Yeah,
I'm
when
not,
her mum's like, why did you have sex?
Trouble,
and she's like, because he was fit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
And her mum kept saying she's going to get in trouble and she's like, but how? Because I'm not going to get pregnant. I don't get it. I'm not going to get STIs. I don't understand how I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, like she can't navigate those implied things that you tend to pick up by context, I guess, in a social way.
So, yeah, it's little things like that. And obviously her mum reacted neurotypically, we could say. Parents are not diagnosed with anything.
I would say, obviously this is through her eyes as well, yeah. I would say her mum was extremely over the top. But however, I'm a millennial mum who cares about my child's feelings. So, you know.
Whereas it wasn't completely uncommon if you had a child that didn't fit the norm. You were just like, okay, we're going to make that real quiet.
Yeah.
Put you under the rug.
But, like, yeah, and because of the time period it was in, there's a lot of kind of abuse, and no matter your opinion on it, like hitting your child is abuse, end of. But all of that was kind of culturally the norm then. And obviously as a parent, I had that added thing that when I was reading it, I was like, this makes me feel sick. Like, how can you hit your child or whatever? Like,
well, yeah, because they're fidgeting while you're drying their hair.
Yeah.
Where I'm like remembering that, like, I had sort of Gen X parents, so my dad used to chase me with a hairdryer because I wouldn't sit still for the hairdryer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that was in my head. That was a direct comparison. Is like we used to make a game of it.
Yes, exactly.
I got the synopsis on the back as well because I quite liked it, so I've got it up here and I thought I'd share it.
Yeah.
So it's like a bullet point summary of her book, which like I think really summarises the tone of the book quite well.
Yeah.
A summary of my book. 1. I'm diagnosed with autism 20 years after telling a doctor I had it. 2. My terrible Catholic childhood. 3. My friendship with an elderly man who runs the corner shop and is definitely not trying to groom me. 4. Homelessness. 5. Stripping. 6. More stripping, but more nervous breakdowns. 7. I hate everyone at Edinburgh Uni, etc. 8. Redacted as too spicy. 9. After everyone tells me I don't look autistic, I try to cure my autism and get addicted to Xanax. 10. Redacted, too embarrassing.
Yeah, she...
I think that summarises the tone
so well, doesn't
really
it?
well.
Yeah. So she, she discusses a lot of the kind of stereotypes, which you briefly mentioned with the doctor, and how they're absolutely ridiculous stereotypes to use to, like, diagnose people. You know, so there's the thing that people often think that if you're autistic, you're not going to be in a relationship, and
you're not going to hold a job, or not going to get a degree.
And she displays, or she discusses how she feels that because she was autistic, actually she was able to have loads of relationships. Just she felt about them differently to how she thinks neurotypical people would feel. Obviously, she doesn't know because she is... But yeah, so she has a lot of links to research documents that she mentions.
Yeah,
and stuff.
all the stats. There's so many stats in this book as well.
So there's, like, studies of, like, women, autistic women are usually in relationships of domestic abuse and things like that.
Yeah, the relationship between neurodivergence in general and being in abuse, the statistics are like there's quite a high correlation.
Yeah, I can imagine, actually, because just like because I think you struggle to understand what is acceptable and what isn't, because you're not.
Well, I guess it's that kind of thing of, like, if you're, as Fern does in this book, she's mapping social interactions off what she's read in books.
Yeah.
Because in the books, obviously, the narrator's explaining, like, why I did that or something. And if you are mapping romantic relationships off of romance in books, sometimes the way they behave in books is not the way it is ever acceptable for a real-life man to act.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that implicitly, because, you know, social cues are harder for you, then you are not going to know that that's not how someone's supposed to behave in a relationship.
Yeah.
And if that's also your exclusive experience with relationships as you start dating people, because you're seeking partners like what you read in books, and then you're like, oh, it's exactly like the book. I've got this right. I've got the map right.
Yeah.
And then the partners are doing exactly what you expect them to, because it's in the book, except it's real life, and men can't tell you. No one else is allowed to talk to you.
Yeah.
For example, as like a lesser...
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was quite interesting, basically. She does talk a lot about, these correlation things.
Yeah, and she talks about how, obviously, the kind of stereotype or the common thing you find in autistic people is they often have, like, a hyper focus or whatever. And she was saying that it's often misrepresented, like, in women, because women's hyper focus often tends to be their boyfriends or the relationship they're in. Like,
it's in socially acceptable feminine roles.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, caring for someone else.
Yeah. So people will be like, but you're not obsessed with trains. But that's... As with many things in our medical field, it's all that is based on a male experience.
Yeah. Well, there's also...
kind of typical male experience.
There's also the factor that a lot of the research on autism has been done on men.
Mm-hmm.
The DSM-5 for autism and ADHD, the criteria, is based on how it presents in men, because that's what the research has been done on about.
Yeah.
And women are more likely to socially mimic or socially mask.
Yeah.
Because part of what autism is really good pattern recognition, but where the medical community falls behind is that they don't realise that you could do pattern recognition on how to mimic facial expressions and behaviours.
Yeah, like she talks about when
And
she was a teenager, one of the patterns she noticed is popular girls all had their hair done a certain way, and she made that correlation. She was like, so if you have lots of scrunchies in your hair, you become popular.
Yeah.
Because that was the connection she made.
Or if I want to do well on TV, I have to be very thin.
Yes.
And big boobed.
Yeah.
She mentioned, like, weight is a constant mention throughout this, because she is a child of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And she finds that she can control her eating, which is something that a lot of young girls from that time went through. And also, as an autistic person, she has that... she goes through that thing that, like, when everything's getting stressful, she just only has one safe food or whatever.
Yeah, so she explains, like, that she finds... like trying to pick what to eat and too many different things overstimulating when she's already overstimulated.
Slay.
Yeah. So she will end up eating the same food, because then it's like, okay, I don't need to think about this. This is one thing I don't need to worry about. I eat the same thing, but it's like you can't eat cornflakes for a month and
But can you do it?
And be nutritionally well served all round. Which is obviously how she, like, obviously her weight does go up and down in accordance with that, and then whenever she loses weight, she gets lots of positive affirmations.
Yeah. So then she's like, this is how it should be, this is how I'm meant to look. Yeah, so makes me figure, like, in lockdown when my partner was like, we can't have jacket potatoes every meal, and I was like, but why not? It's comforting.
I've definitely done that, because, like, some context, we are suspected neurospicy but both undiagnosed.
Yeah.
So we cannot sit here in confidence and talk about this saying that it is from that perspective. We just have some suspicions about us both being a little bit ADHD. Not a little bit, you can't be a little bit ADHD. Self-diagnosis is valid.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say 99% sure over here.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, self-diagnosis is valid, but in this case, I want you to let you know that neither of us are diagnosed. We're coming at this from a strong suspicion.
Yeah, because if you weren't able to self-diagnose, often I think a lot of people wouldn't have been diagnosed. I mean, if they weren't going to the doctors and pushing for it.
Right, so... I had a throat infection last week, okay, which is why I'm a bit croaky, and I apologise. So I had to go through the emergency doctor's appointment service. It's now a form you fill out.
Yeah.
For non-UK people, you won't understand why this is all a bit weird, because my GP is part of one of those ones that's been privatised, but is still NHS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to fill out a form for the emergency appointment. And in that form, I basically self-diagnosed that it was a throat infection. Yeah. Because I've had them a bunch of times. I was like, here's all the things I've really tried to fix it. Here's what it looks like. Here's what I think it is. I would like some antibiotics. And she essentially phoned me up and was like, yeah, I agree with you.
Done.
Antibiotics are on the way.
Yeah. Sorted.
Like, cool.
See, my online form that I sent to the doctor recently, where I was like, it's become very apparent that I have ADHD. Here is the reasons why. Here is what I believe has triggered this to be something that I now need help with.
Yeah.
You'll notice that I recently came to you for stress, which I'm still dealing with, and I think that was one of the triggers. And the doctor replied, let's have a face-to-face appointment. I mean, a lot of what you listed could just be stress, and I was like, I mean, did you see the rest of my list though?
Because that's the problem. Like, you can have executive functioning issues if you are stressed, if you're depressed, if you are anxious. Yeah. So there is a lot of crossover, and that's why women get misdiagnosed, as Fern was in this book, as having depression and anxiety and OCD at one point, and like everything else.
I mean, I've had anxiety and depression diagnosed for about 10 years now, and I'm like, oh, would you look at that? But I
just don't tell the doctor when something's wrong. I'm very British in that sense.
No, I went in and was like, I need some medication right now, please. And she was like, oh yes, here you go.
Yeah, I have desperately hidden all the ways in which I was struggling until about 4 years ago, whenever I left my horrible job.
Yeah.
Where I was like, this is not normal.
Hang on a minute.
There is something else going on here.
I like it when she's in a psych ward, when they think she's got OCD or she's been diagnosed with OCD, and the therapist or counsellor or person who's not qualified in any way is just moving like a tissue box around the table to see if she gets annoyed, and she's like, I know what you're doing, but that's not what I'm annoyed about. I need my parents or my family to be quiet.
Like I need them to not move my things.
Yeah.
Means I need to not have the overstimulation of stuff not being in the place I expect it to be.
You can move your tissue box around, I don't care.
It's not my thing. Go in my room and move something, and then we'll have something to talk about.
And then she actually kind of thrives in the psych ward because she finally has quiet to do her schoolwork.
Quiet and a set routine.
Yeah.
And no weird social constructs that she's supposed to, like, decipher.
No.
Because everyone in there is a little bit ill and is not trying to act a different way.
No, there's, like, no masking or anything.
Yeah. Which is why she does discuss, she wonders how many of those people were neurodivergent.
Yeah. When she's, like, talking about how she just wants to be left alone to learn the languages that, like, tickle her fancy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've learnt a lot of languages over the years just because I wanted to. I was like, stop it.
Yeah, when she talks about, like, being thought to be really clever in school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So...
And I was like, I mean, again, we have suspects, but we both have ADHD. And I was like, me in school being, like, so bored. And when I tell people I'm like, I used to find school really boring. I found it too easy. They were like, are you really clever there? And I was like, I'm not that clever.
This is what I was literally talking about this with my son's head teacher.
Yeah.
She was like, what were you like in school? And I was like, really disruptive because I got bored. I did my work quickly and then I was bored.
Yeah, I figured out if I did my work really quickly, because you know they used to, this, I don't know if this teaching style still happens, but they basically used to give us a worksheet and it would be like 4 questions, and because everyone would disrupt and talk and like not do the work.
Oh, and it took like an hour to do 4 questions.
So I would do the 4 questions, and then they'd give me the extension questions, which would be like another 3.
Yeah.
And then I'd be done within 20 minutes, and the rest of the hour was my own.
Yeah, yeah.
And the teachers would just be like, sit there and don't bother anyone.
Yeah.
And if I did that, they left me alone. And I was like, and that made them think I was, well, I'm mediocre. I was never thought to be that smart in school.
Yeah.
But like, since then, people have been like, you're really smart. And I'm like, no, I just speak well.
I just come across that.
And if I like what I'm learning, I can learn it really fast.
Yeah.
Because it becomes my entire brain for a little while.
If you've ever done a Tandem read-along before, they give you like some question cards. So I thought we could go through a few of these. So is now a good point to add that in?
You know, I have my little bullet points of things we should talk about. Because I prepped.
So you tell me if there's anything else on your bullet point.
I thought the stuff about autism and sexuality that she talked about.
Yes.
I.e. there being higher rates of people who are LGBTQIA+.
Because they're not restricted by the social
norms. Because social norms are like, okay, I don't know what that is. I like this person, shut up.
Yeah, when she's like basically a child. Okay, she's not a child, she's like 16 or so. I guess she ends up in a threesome that she's like, I'm really confused about how this happened, but okay, I guess this is happening. And she's got like a kidney infection, and she doesn't want to mention it because she thinks that might not be sexy or
and where she talks about also the black and white thinking of also not understanding why our sex is supposed to be bad or wrong. Not that I'm saying that, I don't agree with that opinion.
No.
But in the 80s, again, context for the time period, where her mum is...
Catholic upbringing.
In her Catholic upbringing. And we're talking like a small rural town in Scotland.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking like it's in London on the cutting edge. You know? Like,
cutting edge!
You know what I mean?
Yeah. With
boomer parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that black and white thinking as well of like, I liked him so I had sex with him. Like, what?
Yeah, what's the problem? He was fit. And there's like a bit where when she first goes to university and her housemates, one of them like
doesn't like how many boys she's bringing back. Yeah.
And then they all go and get an STD test, and she's the only one without any infections, and she's sitting there all smug on the way home, even though they're all in long-term relationships.
Yeah. So I just thought all of that was really interesting, the stats she had around that stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, because there is that stereotype again of this autistic person, because they get infantilized in that they assume that they don't want romantic relationships, or that they can't be in them, or that someone who is in one is somehow taking advantage.
Yeah.
Which again, depending on your support needs, that may be true for someone with very, very high support needs, because I'm not going to say severe autism or high functioning, because those aren't things.
No.
You have high and low support needs in different areas of where you struggle. So if someone with extremely high support needs who socially can't read those things, does not want those things, that person maybe wouldn't be in a relationship. But it's the stereotype that no autistic person wants a relationship.
I think, I don't know if this is just a UK show. I don't know if America's done a version, or if anyone watches it in America, but The Undateables was a Channel 4 show. I don't know if that's still going.
You might know the TikTok sound that went round because of it. You know that we've both got autism, haven't we? That is from that show.
And in that, they like specifically pick people who kind of live up to that stereotype. They also use the term Asperger's a lot in that, which Fern mentions in her book is not a term that's used anymore, because it's got such negative connotations. And
it's based on, I think is it Hans Asperger, who was a Nazi?
Yeah, it's based on...
And a lot of
Nazi
autistic
science.
research is still based on that Nazi science.
Yeah.
So there is also that legacy that carries on to this day in the diagnostic criteria. And that was done on men as well.
Oh, shocking.
And obviously not done in like laboratory conditions, because it was during the Holocaust. So
I recently listened to... There's a podcast I listened to called Red Handed, which is my favourite podcast. And they recently did an episode about the Kingsley scale, and obviously the sexuality in this... I can't remember his name. His surname's Kingsley. And how in like the 50s, or no, I think it was like the 40s, he was the one that came up with this idea that there is a sexuality spectrum.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to listen to. And yeah, I listened to that episode yesterday. So it was whilst I was reading this book, it was all very interesting.
Yeah, and she gets into obviously the autism. You're not going to black and white thinking. You're not going to subscribe to this whole thing of like, if you fancy someone, you shouldn't be with them because it's socially wrong. She's like, I fancied women. Yeah. So I also dated women.
And then she also just like overlaps a lot of people, because she's just like, oh, I fancied that person's side.
Well, this is again, that's that hyper focus thing as well.
Yeah, she just kind of moved on.
Can transfer.
Done. But then she also had a lot of discussion about how she stayed with people because they were her support at the time. So because she was kicked out of her parents a lot, she stayed in relationships that she didn't want to be in
without them,
because she needed somewhere to live. Yeah.
Fat Scott, was it?
Yeah.
Fat Scott,
yeah. And then I don't know if this is like the next bullet point or whatever, but that also leads into like some violence that happened in particular.
There was one particular person who she hyper focused on for a very, very long time. And this person, I believe, was probably gaslighting her.
Oh, he sounds
the whole
horrid.
time.
Yeah.
It gets physical later in the relationship. The physical abuse happens later, but he is clearly mentally abusing her from very early on.
Taking advantage of her hyperfixation, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think he probably saw her. I mean, obviously, I don't know either of them or their relationship, but he probably saw her as naive and someone he could.
Yeah, again, that manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah, she mentions
image.
that, the manic pixie dream girl is often just autistic women.
Yeah, and then, I mean, like, someone said to me, well, no, it's not someone on the internet, I saw this, new girl, Jess, autistic.
Yeah.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And the way that all the others, like, protect her as well.
Yeah, I remember the first time someone said that to me, like it was a shock, and I was like, I thought it was actually just... I thought it was just how she was... I thought it was obvious.
Yeah, no, I didn't see it until and then I said that, and then I rewatched it, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
She's so autistic coded.
Yeah, and like Ramona Flowers from Scott Pilgrim, which again is like manic pixie dream girl. Yeah.
Yeah, so she does... It's really interesting, especially if she moves into film and television, as her career, it's really interesting how she gets into like those stereotypes and where she clashes against them. I really like this book. Very heavy.
I'd never heard of her before.
I know her from Taskmaster, and she does talk about Taskmaster in the book.
Because
that was around the time she got diagnosed.
That, actually.
Taskmaster, great.
Yeah, my partner's watched it and always
I watch it
tells me
obsessed.
to watch it.
It's the auto watch in this house. If none of us could be asked to pick what's on, we just put Taskmaster on. We've watched it about 20 times.
My son's head teacher, when I had that meeting and we were having a bit of a brutally neuro chat, and she was like, I think her son is neurospicy of some description, and she was like, you know, like with my son, I know when he's having a bad time he just rewatches the same things, and then if I try to say to him, hey, watch something else, and I think I'm helping him, but I'm not, because he needs to rewatch like blah blah. And I was like, well, yeah, because I just rewatch the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and she was like, oh.
My friends would be like, have you watched this yet? And I'm like, I don't have the brain space right now.
Yeah, that's like whenever you like watch Shadow and Bone, and I'm like, but I'm on my 12th rewatch this week of... I mean,
thing is, I should watch my friend will be like, it's been 2 weeks, have you watched it yet? I have waited 2 years. It's now cancelled.
Well, yeah, because we knew that was coming, so it's Netflix. But isn't it that much sweeter when I finally get round to it?
Yeah.
Like when I finish Skullduggery.
You finished Skullduggery, finally. I'm waiting for Bridge Kingdom now.
Yeah.
And for me, this the thing with her socially at school of being always told that she's like too intense, or like when she finds a really interesting topic that she wants to talk about, and then that like crushing moment when you realise the other person opposite you is bored of you, or thinks you're weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one, that kicked me. Because that happens to me even now. Yeah. Like, I'll read a book I really want to talk about, and I just talk to it about my friends because they're my friends and I want to talk to them. And I've called them out on it now, so now they just smile and nod and be like, that sounds cool. But before, it would be like, could you shut up now?
Yeah.
Like, I have very blunt friends, and they have said things like that to me.
Yeah, it's like when my partner, when I talk to him, he picks up his phone and looks at it, and I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah. Well, that's probably him trying to focus, though.
Yeah, he is listening to me. Like, for him, he's doing everything he can to listen to me. For me, I'm like, so you don't want to listen to me anymore?
Because I had to... My last workplace, I had to sort of... Because they were like, you always bring your laptop into meetings, or you draw.
Tap, tap, tap. Yeah.
And I'm like, if you want me to listen to what you're saying...
I need to be
also doing other work at the same time.
I need to distract myself with something else so I can listen.
I was like, if you see me... hands down looking directly at you, I'm not listening to you.
No, I'm doing that monkey circus song or whatever.
Because obviously not diagnosed, so I can't ask for accommodations at work. So, and Fern does talk about this in this book, where her therapist has taught her ways to ask for accommodations that sound neurotypical, that neurotypicals can understand. Like, the bright lights give me migraines. Not the bright lights are going to cause an autistic meltdown. So I'm started doing that at work for the suspected neurospicy that I am. And I had started doing it for a long time, and I didn't realise I had done this. But I started asking for accommodations without saying that's what I need. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm such a fidget, I just need something to fidget with, and then I can pay better attention. Yeah. I was like, I just need something to do with my hands, I am listening. Or I just need somewhere to look. I was like, I am listening, don't worry. Like, I have to... And I sort of, there's a rule to this day with me in work. It's like, if you verbally give me an instruction, it's gone. Yeah. I need it in writing. And I had everyone in my last workplace. They would be like, I'm just going to talk to you about this, but I'll send an email after I've talked to you. Good. And I'm like, cool, good with that system. Yeah, perfect. I was like, if you don't see me write it down, or you don't put it in writing, it does not exist.
I'd forgotten
it's
already,
gone.
Yeah. Yeah, she does talk about, obviously, like, when she tries work and different work and stuff. And there's one where she's working at a pharmacy of some description, and it must be probably Boots,
Yeah.
and she has a little badge saying, "Ask me about the number 7 mascara," and someone asked her, and she's like, "It's really shit, mate." Basically,
because no one had explicitly told her you're supposed to lie and say the mascara is good because we want to sell it.
Yeah, she can't lie. She just can't.
So she didn't make. No one said that explicitly.
No one said that,
so she didn't make that implied connection.
Yeah.
That I'm supposed to say the mascara at my job is good. She didn't. So then she literally straight up just told them it's shit. Don't buy it.
Yeah, she was like, "You're better off getting this brand," and then they were like, "What are you doing?"
Her manager at work. I've definitely had a few managers like that.
Yeah.
I think that's all of my bullet points because we've talked about the DSM, domestic abuse, the stats, and the hyper focusing. So let's do the prompt cards.
Yeah. So
Ask me. I can put my notes down.
So, you'll be able to find these on Tandem Collective's website.
I believe we've got links for that too.
Yeah, I've got all the links. I'll share them, and also I will share these the week, like the day this episode comes out. I will share these on our stories on Instagram, so follow us there if you haven't already. So, these will be related to quotes from certain pages, and then they have a question. So, we hear the phrase "gifted and talented" all the time. It's used colloquially on the internet to describe adults. Now we've grown out of school, were you ever a gifted or talented child? And how do you think this affected your upbringing or your approach to your job now? Tell me, Tony.
I was never actually told I was gifted or super smart. I was just thoroughly mediocre and just not the teacher's problem.
Yeah.
Because
I just went under the radar.
I figured out how to skate under the radar, essentially, and just not be a problem. But I used to do the homework from other lessons in different classes, and all the teachers knew I was doing it because I was quiet. They didn't say anything.
Didn't care,
I'd read in lessons, again, quiet, not going to say anything. I used to disappear. There was double science was the bane of my fucking life because I didn't like the teacher, and I didn't like the topic, and it was boring, so I used to fall asleep in his class all the time. But I was at the front. I was in one of the front
so you
benches.
weren't even hiding it.
No, so I used to go to the toilet at exactly the same time every lesson and disappear for 20 minutes. And to the point where the teacher was like, I put my hand up and he was like, "Is it time for the 12 o'clock wee?" And I was like, "Yes, it is, sir." I still got an A.
Funny. Yeah.
I still got an A in science.
Because
there was, you do 2 different types of science at GCSE. Back when I was taking them anyway. And if you're really smart, they put you in more. So my other science teacher said to my mum in a parents' evening, "Your daughter is disruptive in my lessons. She eats, she goes on her phone, she talks to other students and disrupts them. She leaves the lesson for several minutes at a time." She's like, "But she is working to an A grade, so I don't care."
I like that.
I literally said that to my mum.
Good. That's how you should be as a teacher. Like, if they're meeting what you need them to meet, forget about it, mate.
Yeah. And
I find something that doesn't matter.
But that teacher liked me, but the one for the lesson that I hated, he hated me. Because he did teach my brother and he really liked my brother and was upset I was not my brother but girl.
Yeah, why won't you? That's how genetics work.
Do you remember I told you there was that teacher that asked me if I was pregnant in front of the whole class?
Yeah.
That's that teacher.
Yeah, it sounds like a dickhead.
Yeah. So that was, I don't know. But people have thought in my working career that I am really smart and confident and super capable, and it has sometimes meant that supervisors either leave me completely the fuck alone or they micromanage me because they're kind of annoyed that I'm trying to take ownership. So because I can just get on with shit, then so it goes one or two ways. They don't want me to just get on with shit and they want to micromanage it and I can't stand that, or they ignore me completely.
Yeah.
That's kind of been my experience.
So in my working career, people have always been shocked when they find out that I'm quite intelligent. And I'm like, cheers. But I don't know. I don't give off a vibe that I have any fucking brains, but I do. Like, when I remember one manager I was just talking about like my degree and my master's degree and some certificates in languages are done on the side, and my Open University degree, and and they're like, what, you've done all that? And I was like, yeah, I just really like learning. And they were like, oh, I wouldn't have expected. And I was like,
yeah,
well,
I always
just
just
don't
say
understand.
I liked learning. I didn't like
love
school.
Learning. Yeah,
I love learning things.
like,
I hate school.
At school, junior school, I was disruptive because I did the work too quickly and then I was bored. Secondary school, I'd kind of lost interest and my interest lied elsewhere. And then university and stuff was where I shone because I was just left to my own devices and I was picking what I learned and I was learning about stuff I liked.
That was the problem for me when I got left to my own devices, because I never learned how to study. I had to teach myself because I could just memorise stuff, because exams, it's just testing your memory.
Oh yeah, there's nothing.
So I would memorise stuff like a script day before or immediately before exams, go in the exam, split it all out, retained none of it.
Yeah, it's gone now, I'm done.
Or like for certain exams where it was like a essay, I figured out if you write in a formula, you always get an A. There's a certain formula to get an A.
Yeah.
And Stephen Fry talks about doing this, by the way, on a higher level, like in university. But I basically figured out if I write my RE essay always in this way, it's always an A, because I've hit all the learning objectives.
Which is all you need, yeah.
Yeah. I've hit all the tick points. So then I'd write to the tick points.
Okay, so the next one. This is a quote from the book. That's what being autistic feels like for me. One long blackout night of drinking, except there's no socially sanctioned excuse for your gaffes and no one is laughing. And it says, for our neurodiverse and or autistic readers, what does it feel like for you? Obviously, we're not technically, but... And for allistic readers, which was a word I learnt in this book.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that word before. So that's neurotypical people. How do you feel about Fern's explanation of her autism? Feels like one long blackout night of drinking, except there's no socially sanctioned excuse for your gaffes and no one is laughing.
I think I got really good at hiding. So but again, our perspective is not autistic necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got really good at I used to always say nobody knows who I am, because I got so good at pretending to be what I was supposed to be in that moment around different groups of people. I also used to love acting when I was a kid. So I used to be like, I'm just acting all the time. Like, oh, it's so quirky.
I literally said to a customer of mine, like, when he learnt about all of my studies and stuff, and he's like, oh, I thought I knew you quite well. And I was like, literally no one knows me.
Yeah.
Everyone knows a part of what I let them see, but no one knows me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say my partner's probably the closest, but even then, I still don't let him see my full feral self, I don't think. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I do. No, I don't think I do.
Yeah, so I don't identify with that, because I got so good at lying.
Yeah.
And all the things that I couldn't do, I got very good about nobody knowing I couldn't do them. To the point where a lot of people still don't believe me when I talk about it now.
Some of these we've already discussed. How do you feel about white lies to save face or soften a blow to someone's feelings? Do you understand how the rules of social interaction and politeness are askew and are harder to understand the nuance of?
I understand why. I don't struggle with it personally.
No, I don't struggle with it. I can see how hard it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it you just learn from context. And if you don't have that part of your brain that allows you to do that, like if your brain doesn't allow you to do
it's like that innocent example. If someone asks you if they are fat, you are never supposed to say yes. You are never supposed to say yes.
Yeah.
But if no one says that to you explicitly, that's the rule of socialising. Don't tell people like the things they don't want to hear.
Yeah. Like it makes me laugh that when we were younger, if someone said, do I have a big butt, you'd always say no.
Yeah.
But now if someone asks you, you're supposed to say yes.
Well, so I've got a friend of mine that I went to university with. She is from up north and came from a more mixed culturally area. And she's always said to me, I think I'm supposed to have, because I am like a plus size body type and I got a big butt. She said to me she grew up being told by her peers that my body type is what she's supposed to have. And I was like, that's so weird, because I've grown up being told that your body type is what I'm supposed to have. And then when I went to uni and then I was being told differently.
Weird.
You
were like, hang on a minute.
Oh yeah, I've always said the first time someone told me the way I looked, I am shaped naturally, was beautiful. That didn't happen until I went to university. The first time someone told me the way I was built, looked good, happened at uni. And I'd had partners in this town as well.
That is.
But anyway, yeah, I personally can't relate to that, but I get it.
And then, do you think we as a society completely understand neurodiverse people, or do you think we still have more to learn?
So much more to learn.
Know hardly anything really. And as you said, most of what we do know was from really dodgy scientific experiments that were not, quote marks, that had a ridiculous amount of bias to them. No peer reviews, nothing like
nothing
that.
For this mental safety of the people involved.
No, nothing for the physical safety of the people involved.
Yeah. I'm talking about like later the weird science experiments that happened in this quote marks the psychotherapy side, like the 60s and 70s. That things like our attachment theory are based on some of these things, these tests.
Yeah.
Tests, quote marks. There's psychological, like, things that are considered like fact that are based on one experiment done without controls to like like the Stanford prison experiment. They said like, oh, people will always abuse their power, but actually if you gave them an option not to abuse so they gave them no option but to abuse their power. In a different version of the experiment where they were given the option to not abuse it, majority of people took it. Same for the one with the electric shocks, of like someone tells you have to give someone an electric shock and it will kill them. But it's in place of you or something. Everyone will do it. If they were given the option not to, most people chosen not to. I mean, this is sort of knowledge I've picked up from being around on the internet. Please go and Google and find out real facts for yourself. I'm sure our editor is screaming at me because I've got something wrong. But this is like things I kind of know from around.
A lot of those experiments were done with a very, I mean, I know you can't really go into an experiment without a bias, but a lot of them had very obvious biases.
And it was also uni students, so it's people of a certain age, a certain class, a certain diversity background.
So rather than like with the Stanford prison one, rather than be like, I want to find out what happens if people are in this situation, it was like, my hypothesis is this will happen, so it was all skewed to make that happen. Basically
and I think a lot of this is in the same in the research about neurodivergence. I think we've got the same issues.
We barely know anything, and I'm learning about it now, and even what I understood when I first suspected it for my son like 4 years ago to now is different.
I hyper focused on this topic essentially because I became obsessed with understanding the way I work and living better. Like, I can never keep my room clean. I mean, you knew me before I went on my whole little cure myself journey. And like, I couldn't keep this room clean, could I? I was incapable of keeping a room tidy, just my bedroom. Like, I can imagine if I had a whole house.
That's why my house is not tidy.
You know what I mean? I think there is neurodivergence in my parents. So the people who are supposed to teach me certain skills weren't capable of teaching me the skills. Because they also didn't know.
Exactly.
Because Fern Brady talks about the tweet where she came out, quote marks, as autistic publicly. Is she tweeted, I told my dad that I have been diagnosed with autism. And he replied asking me what I'm eating for dinner. And she's like, so that figures out who has it.
That was really funny.
Because it is inherited. you're very likely, if you are neurodivergent, you're very likely to have a neurodivergent parent.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, when my partner got diagnosed, and because we think my son has it, and like my son doesn't stand a chance, basically.
Yeah.
And my partner's mum was looking into it, and she was like, because she wanted to learn about it, and then she was like, some of these sound quite, and I was like, yeah, well, it is genetically passed down, so. So yeah.
Well, I saw this TikTok that was like, oh, I mean, again, you cannot base a diagnosis off a TikTok. I will acknowledge that. You can use that to then go away and do your own research.
Yeah,
what
TikTok
I have done.
did very well at diagnosing people, though.
Yeah, but there's this whole thing now that people. Just want to acknowledge that there is certain school of thought that that's not an acceptable form of way to find out.
Yeah.
For me personally, because I know we've talked about our personal experiences, I went away and did a couple online assessments from like ADHD UK and things like that, and they were all like, "Yeah, it's very likely." So this isn't based on I saw a few TikToks I could relate to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because the thing about ADHD in particular, I don't have as much knowledge on autism, so I'll just speak to ADHD. All of the things, the traits and like the symptoms, all the things that indicate that you have ADHD are all part of the human experience. It's just to the degree that it affects your life, really, will tell you whether it's like ADHD. Because when people like, everyone's a bit ADHD, no, everyone has the ability to get hyper focused on something. Everyone has the ability to get distracted. Yeah, like everyone can go perhaps a day where they don't eat properly and don't think about their self-care. We're talking about when it's detrimental to your life and it's chronic. Yeah
Like, I don't know, an example is not being able to clean your teeth at night for months at a time.
Yeah, when I was younger, I just could not brush my teeth at night.
No, me neither.
Ever. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm a bit better now.
Yeah.
Because I make my son do it, so then I do it.
So a lot of what like Fern covers in this book is, I guess, the shame associated with that, which I think I could relate to on that level, which is where that's where the book kind of got me emotionally, is a lot of the shame associated with not being able to do things your peers can do.
Yeah.
And then having to try and hide it. But like, and so we're going to talk about this in like a reading update. I recently read this book it's Dirty Laundry.
Dirty Laundry, Why Adults with ADHD Are So Ashamed and What We Can Do to Help, by Richard Pink and Roxanne Emery. I love them.
Yeah, so these are people who are on TikTok and Instagram, and they do videos about neurodivergence and the high.
What I need to spend this credit on. Sorry, I'm just gonna buy it.
I really think you should listen to it.
Yeah,
because that goes through the 10 symptoms of ADHD, and Roxy talks about how they manifest for her and how they've manifested in the past. So when she was like less well than she is now, and then her partner shares what it's like as a partner with as the partner of someone with those traits.
So they're on Instagram and TikTok as ADHD_love, and they've just come out with an app, which is a body doubling app, which has been proven to help often people with neurodiverse leanings. Yeah.
That book, again, there's like relating to like Fern's book of like the shame part of it, and how you have to get past that to do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm at the height of my depression, like, showering goes right out the window, and then I can feel really, like, awful, because I'm like, I should be showering. Like, why can't I do it? And it's because the thought of it is just something I cannot do.
Or, like, I don't know how to explain, like, some days when I switched jobs, and it was the pandemic, and that's when I was, like, my brain was not coping with that. And that's when I was like, okay, this has got to be more than just anxiety. Because I had left a horrible job, and it would be fair to say that there was something going on because of that job. Yeah. Because I wasn't in a good place after that job. So that would have been fair to say, but I was like, this feels like more. And then I started seeing all these TikToks. And then I was like, I'm going to go away and think about this and read stuff.
Yeah, and like with me, the only reason I've started really genuinely thinking I may have ADHD is because all this time I've been learning about it for my partner and my son, but now I've got a daughter, I started looking into more how it's going to present in girls, and I'm like, fuck. Look at that then.
Yeah. The more I learn about how it presents in women, like I didn't have to explain to my workplace that like I hadn't done work all day because I was frozen at my desk, unable to do any work. But I physically sat at my desk for 8 hours. I didn't even have a lunch break. I didn't eat. Yeah. I still did no work, and I could not explain why that was happening.
But
I was utterly frozen. I wasn't even on my phone. I was frozen. It was weird.
But in terms of corporate, they're happy because you're sitting at your desk.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck.
I mean, yeah, this is pandemic early days as well.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot to do. And I can do work quite fast. So that's how I got away with that. But I'm like, I can't say to my boss, hey, brain says no work today. Soz. Yeah. Which Fern does talk about, like, the job she had before she was a stripper and before she moved into comedy, that have, like, she didn't keep those jobs, or she moved from job to job to job to job, and I'm a job hopper, so I get that. Not so much recent years. I've been doing better in the last few years.
That's because you've started having your accommodations without realising. And I've been doing better since I went self-employed.
Oh, I'd love to go self-employed.
Wow, so we thought this was going to be a short episode.
Oh my God,
but we've had so much to say.
Can we fill an hour? Because it is a short book, so we were like, are we going to fill an hour talking about this? And apparently we did.
So, yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, if you think that the content warnings are something you can delve into, I would recommend this book. It's a very eye-opening, it's interesting.
It's the very dry humour as well. So if you want to read these topics in a kind of funny way.
Yeah. If someone just been like, look at all of this shit I did that was quite embarrassing. It was autism.
or she was just like... And he said I couldn't do that, so I went home and I cut myself.
Yeah.
That was like, literally, that was a line, it was like, full stop.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, it's a serious topic, but it was the right way for me to read about it anyway.
Yeah, I thought
because I thought that was quite funny.
And it's introduced her to me, so I'm going to check out her
stuff.
stuff.
Her comedy's great.
Because I don't watch comedians or listen to them, ever.
And I recently have read a few books that are either by neurodivergents or about neurodivergence, and the pace in these books is like, this is what I need. The pace.
That's why this is such a short book, because it's just keeping you
The pace
going.
was just like boom,
There's
boom,
no
boom,
meandering.
boom, boom.
It's just, look, we're going to go from this to this. That's it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Like, I and when she talks about the smashing up furniture and all that kind of stuff, she's very frank about it.
I would love to go do one of those smash rooms where you just...
I was really looking into one. They get booked out so far in advance. I wanted to do it on my 30th. I went to a spa instead. It was like spa, smash room. What? I need one. One or the other.
And the one you wanted, you couldn't get booked into.
Basically.
So, yes, please share this episode with anyone that you think might find it of interest. I will put the links in our bio, in the description for this, and in our card if you want to pick up your copy of this book. And I just want to say a big thank you to Tandem Collective and Octopus Books as well for letting us collaborate with this.
We were so excited when we got the email about this.
Yeah, we were incredibly excited. Please follow us, subscribe, like us, etc, etc. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. We have a Facebook group where we are chatting about what we're reading. Going forward, our reading updates are just going to be about standout books. If you want to see more about what we're reading, join our Facebook group.
At the moment, we're just talking to each other in that Facebook group.
It's fun. And yeah, we would love to see you next week for more chat.
If there's books you want us to talk about, you can submit them on our website, which is lazybookloverspodcast.wordpress.com. Also, we do feature indie authors. We always clap ourselves when we get our own website address right. We do indie author feature episodes, so you can also submit an indie book there. Or if you're an indie author, you can go submit it there.
Please do.
Basically, there's a bunch of ways to get in touch with us, so like, please use one.
Yeah, do it.
And follow us and download it.
Just do it. Do it. Bye, guys.